ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome all our guests to this important occasion. For many decades, the African continent has operated on the margins of global trade, with the levels of intra-African trade minuscule and by far underwhelming.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today is also a special occasion because after 25 years of Afreximbank's existence, it looks like it's finally completing its journey from Cairo to Cape this time.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to be part of this historic event, the launch of South Africa Trade and Investment Promotion Program, SADI. Let me start by recognizing the work that Dr. Orama and his team at Afreximbank are doing to transform the continent. This initiative is one of many others you are championing, which will certainly lead to the most anticipated structural transformation of our continent.
Live here on CNBC Africa across the African continent. Of course, we are in Sandton at that very, very, very important square. Indeed, what do they call it? The richest square in Africa. I'm Godfrey Mutizwa. I have with me here a panel of gentlemen who will help us to understand why Africa has not been able to trade as much as it should have been able to do across the continent.
Africa has a checkered history. The history of colonialism is at the heart of the problem Africa faces today. Colonialism was built on a well-crafted strategy, the strategy of divide and rule. So that strategy succeeded in not only partitioning Africa politically, but made it impossible for Africans to deal with themselves. That is why today the lack of trade information is the biggest challenge to promoting intra-African trade.
Look at the way our trade has been going. It actually follows what Dr. Orama said. It followed the traditional colonial routes, where it was much more comfortable for South Africa to trade with the likes of United Kingdom, then Europe, the US, etc., etc. However, we have also seen a steady increase in South Africa's role in the intra-African trade. Unfortunately, 90% of that, or close to 90%, is within the SADC region. So effectively, and if you look at the population distribution, SADC is just quite a very little area to be trading in, 300 million people. And you are having about estimated 1.2 billion Africans on the continent. Why would South Africa then, or South Africans not explore those outer markets outside SADC? Some people will say it's because of that element of infrastructure that Dr. Orama touched on. Sure. That's why as ECIC, we have been quite active in the facilitation of funding for infrastructure projects across the continent.
People trade when you have something that I want, then we can trade. And if the conditions permit that, the price, the logistics, everything work, then trade will be facilitated. So it's about supply and demand. The most fundamental thing is that African economies by far have relied on underlying commodities, and by far the countries have what each other have. They have the same thing, whether it's in mining and so on, with very little beneficiation. Now, the moment we start to look at the demand factors and understand that Africa has demand, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in manufacturing, if you talk about textile, there are opportunities there. How then we facilitate those sectors so that the demand can meet supply becomes a very important thing. And I think Africa hasn't worked that in a very, very successful way.
For me, I think the issues that we spoke about of policy certainty, I think that is really the impediment of growth. That is what makes us entrepreneurs to be wary of investing in countries. And one challenge that we have as African business is dealing with banks that are Afro-pessimists. We see it here in South Africa, and we are comfortable, or most businesses are comfortable dealing with Anglophone countries. When it comes to Francophone, they say, no, that is not for us, it's for France. You know,
in Africa.
And yet, if you really look at those French-speaking countries, they are also endowed with minerals.
Yeah.
The best way for South Africa to help Africa and help itself is only when we export our business people to go and industrialize other countries. The days of saying everything must be bought from South Africa is not going to fly, because it's the same mentality of colonial powers that they've had many, many years ago.
I'll answer with 3 points. One is the importance of policy for industrialization. The second, which has been stressed here, is industrialization in Africa will only take place if we build partnerships. I'm going to say a bit about that. It won't if we don't. We must just understand that perfectly. And thirdly, I'll say a little bit about how the free trade agreement and industrialization need to be harmonized. In Africa, if each economy tries to industrialize, they won't. They're just not going to, it's not going to happen. So we have to begin building the value chains, the investment across African economies. And it requires thought, it requires planning, and it requires consistency.